All right, guys, it is 2025. Can't believe we're here today, but this is The Toast. We are back with a new series. I'm here with Sean Haynes.
Howdy.
My name is Doug Bruner, and we are also part of the Ag Center. Sean does our commodity reports daily now. I wouldn't say daily, but giving a couple weekly updates on KMJ if you haven't missed that. But number one, we're back here. We're excited about a new year. A lot of things have changed. It's been me as a farmer and as well as in the industry, as most of the people who are listening right now. You know, the last couple of years have been challenging. Sean will speak on that later, where he sees a lot of the future going. But it has been challenging. But with challenging comes good times, and we've maybe we personally haven't seen this, but a lot of people have seen this back in the '80s and things like that. And you know, the great part about farming, the people who are listening, and everybody in general that is in California, we're resilient, right? And we really don't know another stage. Like for myself, if you ask me what else would I do other than farming, it would be a hard question for me, as well as yourself in a different industry. This is what you do.
California, it's tech or ag. Really, right?
Exactly. So we gotta really harness in on a lot of the changes. That's one thing that I'm going to touch base on in a little bit, is the changes that we believe as the Ag Center. A little bit focused today is on the Ag Center and where we're going and what we see this year to come. You know, for the Ag Center this year has been as every other business, a lot of learning, a lot of hurdles, right? We've launched an online platform for growers to be able to purchase online, mostly price transparency. We also want to open that up to a functionality of where growers can come online, as well as we're going to get to it later, other things we're coming out with, but go online and purchase just like their wife does on their daily Amazon app, as we have boxes come into our house on a daily basis. So we've done that. We've also added more service companies to the group. We pride ourselves on the companies that have built the Ag Center is built off service companies, but now we want to add products to that, because we believe you need both. You need everything. And if you're going to consider yourself a one-stop shop or a company that embodies everything, we need to have all those things. So we've been really fortunate this year as far as events, focusing on data, as well as learning what people in the industry are doing. We have a great team that captures things. It's just, for myself, who's not a computer person, it's just interesting to see what people are looking for. And there's different varieties of people. That some people want a phone call, some people want a text message, email. It's really interesting. So it's been a good year from the Ag Center, but again, challenging. But we're excited for 2025, as everybody does. They make their list of, like a little kid makes a list for Santa. Us humans, we make a list on things we're going to improve on. I have my 2025 list that I'm going to do personally, but I think the Ag Center has we want to make 2025 our year to grow. I'm excited that Sean has come on to really help us on the financial side. He has a long background in that. I think a lot of people already know who he is, who are possibly listening. And if you don't, he's going to kind of give us a recap. And I think it's important that people hear on what he envisions, what he's seen in 2024. He's been in doing banking for 15 years now.
20 years.
20 years. Been the head of banks as well as advisories for large companies. He's seen the ups and downs and the ebb and flows of how people do their financing and things like that, how they purchase, how they borrow money. And I think he's going to give us if you haven't heard, he's going to give us a quick rundown of what he's seen on 2024 and what he sees on coming forward on 25.
Yeah, and speaking a little bit to what you guys are doing at Ag Center, or we're doing at Ag Center this year with that app, one of the things on a trend side, at least I've seen, if you can agree with it, is that producer power has just been kind of falling for the past 5-10 years, right? With all these companies selling just products and goods, between the big chemicals, fertilizers, what have you. And there has been transparency in pricing. It's pretty hard for a 100-acre grower to get the same pricing say a 10,000 acre grower does, right? And one of the things we've been able to do with Doug's companies is consolidate their buying power, and through the ag center, kind of gone out and large purchases, right? Say, hey, instead of don't treat me like a 10 acre grower, a 40 acre grower, treat me like a 10,000 acre grower. I have some buying power, right? Which puts some producer power back on my side. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with this app is kind of get these, treat it almost like a grower buying group, right? Hey, we're going to collectively buy product. We're going to put groups together using the app to say, hey, does everybody need X type of fertilizer or X type of glyphosate or whatever it is? And instead of buying 100 gallons, what's my price for 10,000 gallons, right? And that's one thing I'm really kind of excited for 2025 this year. Once the app comes out this month, we start pushing it out and seeing how much pull through we can get these producers together. Because right now it's fragmented. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. There isn't a kind of consolidated viewpoint from the farm side. So
on that side, and I agree with you on that. We farm, my farming company, we farm quite a bit, and you would think, in our mind, we think we're big, right. But in retrospect, we're an ant on the scale in California, and I think that is the issue I believe in California when you compare it, because you follow Midwest trends. They work together when they buy, how they purchase, how they consolidate, do everything in negotiations, and I really do believe we in California have done ourselves a we all think we have our secret sauce. Right. When we really don't. We're actually, the companies are using our inability to work together against us.
And the fact we hold information so tight, right?
Absolutely.
Like, guys don't talk, when we go in South Market versus North Market, right? We're looking at the chemical deals. And we applied some South Market prices probably 2-3 months ago to a company up north that was farming and said, hey, here's the prices we pay down south for the chem and fertilizer you guys are paying for up north. It was like $2.5 million difference a year. Same chemicals, same companies, right? And so I think a lot of that's just, hey, let's create some transparency, especially with prices like they've gotten. That there's no real benefit in prices anymore, farmer to farmer, right? Everybody's paying this simple level price. The processors are really taking a lot of control on that side. So again, how do we get some producer power back so we can make some decisions from a collective basis? And I think that's what the app's going to do for us this year.
For sure. And it takes away, which I didn't, Sean kind of jumped on it, but yes, the Ag Center is releasing an app. Our goal is by February 1st. We got to do some beta testing, but our goal is to be able to offer on a daily basis commodity reports, weather, things like that. Something you wake up every day and you're looking towards something that is going to help you on an everyday basis, as well as being able to go to a site that you can find, from your couplers to your fertilizer to a service, that you can, wake up in the morning and it's your purchasing agent, right? And transparency. And I think, we get lost especially when you're bigger, you're sending your guy to Joe or Juan or whoever it may be to get a $5 part, and it's costing you $100 by the time they go there and back. Right. And they've had 3 cups of coffee or 2 beers along the way.
Plus you lost productivity and not in the field doing anything else, and it lays on top of each other, right? So I like it for that reason alone. I think one of the trends you're going to see going forward just in farming in general California is we've got 200 crops here versus the Midwest, which are like 6 or 8 crops, right? So that's kind of made it hard for that. But the technology side is kind of helping scale down the information, right? Now, before you had all this information all over the place, it was really hard to kind of get it and centralize it, right? And see what things are going on. Like, great example is nut prices, right? Find me a reliable place to go just look and find walnut prices on a day-to-day basis. It's just not out there. Pistachio prices not out there. Glyphosate prices, you got to talk to a sales guy who's going to go back, see how much margin he thinks he can get away with, right?
Or what rebate he needs, yeah.
Right? And this thing just wipes it out and says, here's where it is. Simplifies all that, and that provides you more time to make better management decisions.
Absolutely.
It's really it's becoming more and more data-driven, farming is, and I think the folks that are kind of moving that way are well ahead of the folks that aren't, and
well, one thing you're big in is, no doubt, is the dairy business, right? And right now, I believe, because that's where I came from 10 years ago, still heavily in understanding it, families in it, is that if we are not moving forward on everything we do, it's I was talking to a large dairyman the other day, and he's just like, oh my, I don't know, he's in his mid-60s. He's like, he doesn't have a predecessor. He's like, this game has changed.
Oh, it's crazy.
My father-in-law, large in the almond industry. He said he ate for a while. He never lost money for about 20 years. I remember my grandfather, Ed Dieger, big into the dairy business, said he never lost money for 20 years. Right. Now the ebb and flows of dairy, and now I think we're going to see the same thing in the nut market. Mm-hmm. We're already dealing with that on the row crop market. You know,
it's commoditized, right?
Yeah, 1 year you're at $100 corn silage, the next year it's $40.
Right.
In the field, tomatoes went from 105 to 140 to 112. Prices are going up. You know, from what I was paying for seed, from when I started 10 years ago, it's double. Mm-hmm. You know, what I was paying. I mean, and we're just, if you're not large enough or you don't have a bank behind you, the scalability is hard. So that's one thing the Ag Center, we want to, which our team has done, we want to make these things relevant. We want news we want to help in decisions that we can make. And that's the great thing about what we're doing. I believe we're an open book. Right. We want people to come to us, help us with that if we can help them in any way. And I think that's one thing the app's going to do. I really believe in it. It's kind of like Elon Musk said, if you totally believe in something, it will go through. And this is something, I have enough other things going on. I really don't need another thing, but I so confident in what we're doing, because if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. Right. And I want it to be me. I believe the team that's with us has been dedicated. The team we've sorted out now. We've had some good people in the past, but right now we have a team that's been consistent. They know what their goals are. And, of course, we're going to keep adding to that team. So, yeah, we're really excited. As far as the Ag Center, we're excited, that ag is going to keep changing, but we believe we have a team that understands the changes that are happening constantly. And you've been with my business for 8 years as far as advising my farming. We've maneuvered, we've made changes, we've pulled back. I mean, we've grown, and we've put up the shields to block ourselves. And so
bloom season is here, and Penny Newman's Como 5 is your secret weapon for maximum yields. Boost flower retention, increase fruit set, and grow larger. Get the best from your bloom. Choose Como 5 today. Contact Penny Newman to learn more.
Anyways, so yeah, it's been a lot of fun on that side. But why don't you give a recap just on 24, what you saw from overall ag as well as financials? Because I think that's something most people care about, right? Nuts and bolts, that's what affects everybody.
Nuts and bolts. I think the biggest thing that everybody, and you spoke to a little bit, is volatility. Like just the price swings you're seeing in commodities now, they happen so much faster. The amount that they move up and down really hasn't changed, but how fast they move up and down has, right? So before it might have been a 2 to 3 year up and down swing in a commodity market. Now it's like 6 months, right? You look at dairy markets this year, we started at like $16.50 in January, and now we're in the $20, $21 range at the end of the year.
And I just heard the futures are looking down again now.
But futures are looking down, but they don't really follow economics sometimes, right? Yeah. Which is also tough. So folks like me are constantly reading stuff like that and saying, "Hey, what are the tea leaves telling me I should do on the forward basis?" And you've got like competing influences, right? And it's tough to make decisions. I tell guys all the time, you really have got to take a risk management approach to farming anymore. Before you could just work harder and get out of it, but now, man, if you can't understand what your costs of production are on a real time basis. Like with your operation, we've gotten down to the point where I can tell you field by field what we did out there, right? So here's what my field did: yields, income, tons, whatever, income, cost per acre, revenue per acre, and make decisions on a field basis. That's where we're at, and we're not even quite cutting edge yet, right? And I've got guys that I still talk to; they're still doing stuff on a napkin, really, right? Yeah. And you're just not going to survive if you can't make that leap. And I think the other thing that's really changed this year, because of that price volatility too, you've seen the institutional money really dry up, right? Institutional money was in here. Crop was pretty easy. Land prices were making it very easy to kind of make an investment decision in agriculture because you could at least rely upon the land.
Institutions helped equity.
Yeah, they helped equity a lot, and that's kind of dried up. And now now you're looking at a true crop return of 2 to 5%, and that's not too sexy for an institution that can get 8% on a bond someplace or an investment. So that's pulled back out of the market. I think the big thing I'm looking at this year is it is crop by crop, really. And I think the folks that are diversified are doing better than the ones that are monocrop folks. If you're just a tomato grower, you're not as well off as if you farm tomatoes, almonds, and have a dairy, right, for example. And that's a trend I think going forward, people are going to really look at, like, I can't just be a single row crop farmer or a single crop, monocrop farmer anymore. I've got to get diversified out, right, in some way, shape, or form, just so when these volatilities hit, they don't hit together. They're independent, and so I'm covered. If almonds are bad, tomatoes may be good, and tomatoes are bad, dairy may be all right, right? And so it kind of levels that stuff out. But a lot of it, just you can't do anything but price. A lot of people don't understand. I do understand that. We're price takers in the farming industry. We get what we're given. Don't have a lot of ability to push any price off into the market for consumers, but I can control costs and I can control yields, right? And so my yields drive costs down. How I buy and how I allocate costs per acre, per ton, per pound, whatever you want to call it, and understand that allows me to, one, make sure I'm competitive in the marketplace. I'm better than the top 10%, so I should be always measure myself against the top 10%. And then also, two, when there's an opportunity to take risk off the table, I take it. Like this year, if it's okay to share, but a lot of my clients that have almonds this year, we kind of went out and said, hey, you know what? I know the price of almonds is good for right now, maybe a little better later in the year.
Take a win.
Let's take a win. Let's sell half my crop, 3/4 of my crop, all my crop, bring it in, pay my lines of credit off, be done with it, right?
Yeah, because if you don't do it now, you're betting on a 20 cent if you're borrowing money.
Yeah.
You're betting on a 20 cent come.
Right.
Right?
Right. And if I'm 5 to 10 cents off,
It's okay.
it's okay because at least I knew I made money, right? I could also be 5 to 10 cents off in the other direction, right?
Absolutely.
That's always, so you got to get some of that gamble out of the game. So almonds were another great example this year. We're kind of projecting like 165 to 185 blend price, and we're sitting in the 225, 235 price for this crop this year. 24 crop year, 25 crop year, who knows? But if they keep doing what they're doing, on the buying side, it's going to keep it high. A lot of people don't know that, but the inventories, because of the logistics issue and because of COVID and all these other things, the buyers overseas that buy a lot of product for the United States, because we're the only place for it, are really buying hand to mouth right now. They're not carrying inventory, so they're running out of inventory and they've got to buy to fill. They can't wait for a price improvement or negotiate too much because they'll run out of product and lose the sale, right, on their end. And so that's been moving a lot of nuts, right, and keeping that price high, which is huge.
And you have people like myself who we need cash.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, as far as from the almond side, is something that's pushing growers to sell, which is a great thing because when everybody was flush, you could hold.
Right.
You could hold. And so to me, that's still, it's going to be a good thing for another year and a half.
Yeah.
That growers still got to push out product.
And I think because you get that both sides are both equally motivated to sell, it's going to keep the price elevated, but not too high, right? Because I tell people the best cure for high prices. If nuts did shoot to $3 a pound, all of a sudden it's going to kill the market. Mm-hmm. And once that market falls, right, everybody's hanging on, waiting for the bottom to hit to buy at. And so at this point, you've got an equal kind of push-pull going on in the market. And as long as that's there, I think you're going to see good prices this year. 25 crop, it's hard to call. But, if we don't get some chill hours, that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm watching chill hours, just not getting a whole lot of them.
Yeah, somebody brought that up today. I haven't paid attention to that. We're at the almond count. We probably should ask somebody that, but I haven't paid attention to that.
Right.
Really.
And that's the stuff I talk to folks about. Like, what's your risk, right? What's my risk to yield? I can control my costs a little bit, but what's my risk to yield? What's my risk price? That's a risk to yield, right? Like if availability of bees, you should have them locked up or be locked on right now. You should be looking at chill hours, right, on a regular basis. Even have monitors on your own place that you're pulling data from, just to give yourself an idea of where you're sitting at, right? So you're making the right decisions when the crop season comes into play.
For sure.
And same thing, it's all those crops. It's not just those, but you should understand what's going on in the environment because it has such an effect on what your back end yield's going to do. So again, data driven. You got to have. It's an art, right? You get the data, and then how do you read the tea leaves, and what is it really telling you?
Yeah.
But the 25 crop. The 25 crop's not going to have a lot of pressure coming in from the 24 crop, which is good. I don't think it's going to be a big crop. I don't know what you think, but I'm thinking we're not going to see a 3 billion pound crop when the
I don't think it's talking to a guy today, a large almond grower who knows the dairy business. It's hard to, he's saying, well, my yields have been off. And I said, well, you can't expect to get 90 pounds of milk when you feed a 60 pound ration.
Right.
And so what I mean by that is, you can't expect to get a 3,000 pound crop when you're given it 2,000 pound inputs.
Right.
And their deal is, well, I haven't hit the yields for the last 3 years, so it's about time it's going to happen.
Right.
Well, you also haven't been given it the nutrients it needed.
Well, all the 25 fruit was built this year. Right?
Yeah.
So whatever you put in the crop this the 24 year is coming out this year.
Yep.
Right? You're always a year behind with that. And so
For sure.
guys have got to make the right decision, and again, yield is a big determinant on what your cost is, right? Your cost per pound produced. So make sure you put it in there. It's the almond things. It's always hard to call, but I think we got a good little run going. It's not going to be $3 a pound. I don't think you're going to fall below 225, 235.
Another thing. This is just kind of bullshit. But another guy I was talking, a good buddy of mine, Carl. We're talking today, and it was just like, is the weather changing too? Are we getting? I mean, this year in tomatoes just got destroyed.
The heat,
30% of the crop was good from the beginning. 70% just got annihilated by, weather and things like that. And it just seems like this trend that is not leaving. Like I haven't been growing long enough to be able to, say, oh, this happened in the 80s or the 90s. But this just seems like vulnerable weather. I mean, you've been in it longer than I have, but just
a nice way of saying I'm old.
Yeah, no, you're not old, but I'm just saying, like, there's been a lot of vulnerability in weather.
Weather's huge, and it's hard because is 3 or 4 years a long-term trend? Because when I was a kid, I'm getting in my 50s, but in the 70s, we were scared about the coming ice age, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had temperatures that were down for 5 to 10 years, and everything was going to freeze over. We couldn't feed ourselves, and I don't know. And part of me wonders too, like on the tomato side, the business has gotten a little bit bigger. And so part of me wonders if we're just farming into areas we didn't farm before and get, hit. Because the stuff down south didn't get hit with the heat as bad as the stuff like in our region north, right?
For sure.
Right. The heat
It's like
just,
that Chowchilla Merced area, that borderline.
Just kind of hits right at bloom, right?
Yeah.
We're down south, they've already got bloom and they've got berries, and the berries are sizing up as long as you have the water to them on time. So sometimes I wonder if it's that the business has just gotten multi-regional and it's gotten into some different weather bands, and the industry hasn't caught up on varieties yet because of that. I don't know. There are ways to combat it. I mean, one, you should be insuring yourself.
Yep.
Like insurance saved our butt this year. On quite a few
how
fields.
long that'll last.
Right, but you can buy insurance. And insurance is available in anywhere from 42 to 47 tons at $138 a ton range this year, and same thing with any other crop. Are you carrying insurance? If not, you should. And you got to start looking at stuff like right now I'm modeling at least. You can do futures markets on weather now and say, hey, my mean temperature is 100 degrees during these 6 weeks.
That's with insurance?
With the climate exchange,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And so you can play with things like that now, and you say, okay, well, I got 6 weeks where the nominal or the average, temperature is 100 degrees, right? And then you can say how many contracts do I have to buy, where if the degrees are 10 degrees above that, how much crop damage do I expect to have, right? And so how many contracts do I need to buy in that weather market?
I think anything over 100,
So,
you're getting your ass kicked.
Yeah. But you can cover yourself.
Cows too.
Right? Yeah, cows
Is it
too.
the same? Isn't it the same on
Same
cows?
thing, because you're really just buying a futures contract against the change in weather at that
Gotcha.
point in time, right? So you just have to quantify what the value of those contracts could be versus the loss in yield or gain in yield, right?
I think anything past 100, you're getting your ass kicked.
Yeah. And it's hot, and everybody's, the tomato thing's tough because it's super susceptible to it.
But corn too.
Corn, nuts this year, a lot of people, you could say the nut size probably didn't size up because the tree was
We probably
pulling
lost a
water.
couple 100 million pounds.
Yeah. Pulling water to stay alive versus putting in the kernel size, right? So
So another thing, your probably specialty is financing. What are you seeing from banks right now? Property, like what are you seeing from, somebody who's listening to this, weren't redoing loans right now? What's your as far as interest rates? That's been a
capital availability.
Yeah. That's been something that hasn't been fun.
It has. It's high for a long time. I think right now you're looking at rates coming off they've made their second cut this year, another quarter point, which is half point for 24. A lot of people are expecting 4 to 6 cuts, and they see the Fed came out and said we're not doing that. So your short-term rates have come off. They're probably in the mid-6 to 7% range in the floating, so it's come off quite a bit. But the long-term rates have pushed up. And what people don't realize, those long-term rates were baking in like 4 to 6 more cuts. And so when you bake them into your 10-year look, these guys are pricing bonds out now. They're saying, hey, I don't have any more cuts coming in, so rates are going to stay higher for longer. And so now that you've seen the mortgage market kind of pick back up again, and we're past over 7.13% on home mortgages this week, and they were down like 5.95 in the low end about 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. And you're seeing ag mortgage rates getting pretty close to 8,
Really?
on the average side. So you're like 7.
That's on a 30 or 20 year?
On a 30 year.
Okay.
And so I think your long-term rates are going to stick and stay higher for a while. Maybe even peak in the 8 range. I think your short-term rates are going to come off another 1 or 2 times, but maybe get down to low 6s. But you're going to have some real pressure on the long-term rates as far as buying property goes, right? So it makes a hard decision if I got some stress on my crop side as far as price goes, right? And I've got this big cost on the other side for the rate. Mortgage. If I got 8% rate, it's hard to make that decision. So, and I'm not popular when I say this, but when I see stuff like that from an economic perspective, you expect prices to go down on properties that move. And all the properties I've been seeing move are pocket deals. They're really not listed deals that move a whole lot, right? And the deals I have seen move off market have moved at a discount.
Yeah,
we know 2 of them. There's a pistachio deal we saw that sold at 30% discount to market. And the other piece too, South Market, that's really affecting that too is just Sigma, the water deal. You've got to have 2 sources of water to really hold property value. For a bank to get excited about financing it, especially. And then if you don't have that water, I'm seeing, we've got some appraisals back in probably 3-4 weeks ago down south in sub $10,000 range an acre, $9,000, $8,000
for ground without water.
Ground without water, or just a pump source in a basin, right? And so what do you do with that, right? If you're a dairy and I could farm 300 acres before, and I can pump an acre foot per acre, now I can, that 2/3 of that ranch is unusable. Right, so you had a $27,000 an acre ranch. Now you have a $9,000 an acre ranch. Right, it makes sense, right?
So how does that work? Because a lot of people in the last 7 to 8, 7-10 years have borrowed again. How do banks react? I'm sure you've probably done some of those loans too. How do banks react to they loaned on a ranch that was appraised at 22? 25, whatever, 20.
Yeah.
And now the new appraisal is 10 and they're long on that loan and they're trying to get a new operating loan that doesn't have a basis to the, to the land, because land is collateralized. When you sign everything up, right? And so how does that affect short-term operating debt and things like that? Are they calling money out of that or?
Yeah, it makes it hard. So one, if you got a single bank that only has your operating line and doesn't have the real estate tied to it, right? That's a problem. It makes it tough for that bank because their entire risk is on your crop, right? And how much equity you can put into your crop. And so they look at 2 things. They look at your working capital, which is all your kind of assets, cash, crops, inventories you can turn to cash, versus what you owe at the current basis. And do you have a margin above that? It's about 20% of your crop, expense for the year. But they also go to the suitcase and say, hey, what's your real estate portfolio look like, And if they're objective about it and say, hey, I got to look at this real estate portfolio and take it at current values versus the debt you have against it, it affects my ability as a bank to look at that and say, hey, that's a source I can go tap sometime if I get run short.
If I ever need to.
That increases my risk. The other part is as these loans mature, which is more of the risk, right? They hit that 10-year mark. Most loans are 10-year loans with a 30-year payment schedule. As these loans mature, you have to go out and reappraise, right? Legally, you have to do it for RIA for the banks, and Farm Credit has their own rules for doing that. And when you reappraise it, now you've got an upside down loan, right? Possibly. If you had somebody had borrowed toward the back end of the market, locked in a rate at 4% for 10 years, and that rate lock's coming to an end, and now I got to go back out and reevaluate that property that was $27,000 an acre, which is a gross example. Now it's worth 7 or 9. Like, what do you do with that, right? Or if I'm a dairy facility, and I could put all that water out of my crop ground, right, before and grow crops on it, but now I realistically can't grow crops on 2/3 of my property anymore. What is my facility worth? If I have a 6,000 cow facility and I needed 1,000 acres of row crop to do that, now I can farm 300 acres of it. Now my NMP says now that dairy's a 2,000 cow dairy, right? And that's actually been happening in some cases. And so you're seeing the banks kind of hold back, and that's going to create some pinch points for capital, right? Like how do you view that? And as a bank, who do you sell that property to, right? You're kind of in it for the money, so there's like a little bit of a standoff going on, but getting access to capital is tough, right? And then when the time comes for renewal, like now I'm going to double my rate, right? So I'm going, a lot of guys are like dairy. I'll give it dairy's example. A lot of guys are carrying $20-30 million of debt at 4%, paying $1.2, $1.6 million a year in interest costs, and now I get an 8% rate when I got a refi if I wanted to fix. Now it's going to go to $2.4 million, right? So it's a lot.
You need another $2 a hundredweight.
Big chunk of money, right? Or how many cents per pound is that all of a sudden, right? And I look at same thing on these properties. When I look at the interest it costs now to buy a property new, say 65% loan to value, and you got the money to put into it. My 8% on 65%, what is that versus what I can rent the property for, right? And if you're paying $200, $300, $400 and interest costs more than rental costs, it's easy for me to say it 'cause I'm on the outside, but like from an economic perspective, why do I buy that property? I'm hoping the property value goes up, but knowing I'm in a market that's topped off and maybe softening a little bit, right?
I don't think it does. Once you
right?
calculate interest,
It's
I don't
tough.
think you're winning.
It's tough, and so then we look at other crops, we look at other things, and so you're seeing this rise, I think, slow rise of farmers. The big farmers aren't always getting big anymore on ground they own; they're getting big on ground they manage. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You get this generational kind of turn coming. You've got institutional borrowers that own the ground and now are losing their tenants, right? So that's a big shift coming in the next couple of years because it's a rate deal. You know, the rate thing's gonna be trouble for the industry, and the housing industry is gonna do the same thing, right?
We don't see with Trump. I don't necessarily see rates really going down, right?
You can't because unless inflation goes down, right? So you need inflation to go down and you need unemployment to go to shit. Excuse my language. And you haven't seen the employment numbers really fall off as hard as you need to yet, right? You need them down like the 120 to 150,000 a month kind of new jobs, and we've been in the solid 2.25, 250 range for a while. And they need inflation down at 2% range, and they were calling inflation at 2.4, 2.5 for 25, and then this last meeting they said, hey, we think inflation is going to be 2.7 next year. So now you've got inflation moving up, plus you have the government pumping money into the economy, right? And that's all inflationary, and so it's like I think there's a real risk of inflation kind of coming back again a little bit. And the way inflation's hitting people is really hitting people where they buy day-to-day stuff. It's food, it's fuel, it's housing, right? And so until that gets fixed, man, I don't see things kind of changing around.
What are any positives you see for 25? You see the fuel. I mean, California. I was talking to my father-in-law. They implemented the tax, right?
Yeah.
40, okay, so
fuel's hitting hard. I mean, but there's a lot of fuel coming on the market. You look at the futures market, barrels are down the 75
Going down.
negative range.
Right.
You have Nigeria that just came out with a huge industrial complex of fuel. They're doing their own fuel now, which they're shipping it now. The new net importer into the markets.
Okay.
I think Trump's going to release some of these issues we've got with drilling and shale and things like that we got in the U.S., so I don't think fuel long term is going to be a problem. That'll also kind of push fertilizer down a little bit, right?
Yeah, we're just talking about it. We see chem, most likely chem and fert probably coming down. That's a prediction, right? Like that,
but it's prediction from the suppliers, really, right?
Yes.
Telling us. And then on the commodity side, I think, man, it's going to be a tough year for row crop. The only real crops I see making good money are, your nut crops have kind of come back to the profitability range if your costs are in line. Tomatoes, I think we're thinking 110, 112. So we're baking into our thought process per year.
It's kind of got to be there if you want to even get people financed.
Right. Yeah. But then again, get a contract, right?
Yes.
You may not be able to grow it because the industry's correcting, kind of shrinking back to, where they need to be to supply demand, right?
Big oversupply in China and things like that.
Yeah. And we were 32% oversupplied, and they've cut back 15-20% last year, another 15-20 this year, which puts us in balance for 26 crop.
That's one thing about the tomato industry. They do a pretty damn good job at holding the,
getting things in balance, right? Again, and so you look at that, and that's look good. I think dairy is going to be decent next year once these guys get to the bird flu side. I think prices are $21 for your base milk price. Feed costs are down. And I think there's a big heifer hole coming. I keep talking about it, and there's two camps.
Beef's been strong, right?
Beef's been really strong.
You've been calling it for a long time.
Yeah, we're looking at $360, $370 a pound for 4.5 weight steers for 12 months next year so far on the contract side. And then it's just crazy to man. You get 850,000 head less coming into feedlots next year from placements. You got screw or miss you down in Mexico, which they just called for a longer holdover. So that all those Mexican cattle, it's 48% of all U.S. feedlot volumes are Mexican cattle, right?
Wow.
It's a lot.
They're not letting them come in.
They're not going to let them come in because they have potential for bringing that parasite into the U.S., right? Canada and Australia both short on their herds, and then you're looking at Brazil short on their herd too because they did the same thing we did, sold everything they could to us, sold heifers down. You're seeing some retention, which is what you need to see for that market to kind of get better, where there's less heifers hitting the feedlots, about like 34, 35% now. They need to be 30, and they were 40, but it just happened like 2 months ago. So, and that's 3 years out till you fix that. So the beef thing is looking really good. The dairy thing, I think in my mind looks good because these guys.
It's almost like the almond deal. Almost they got to keep breeding these Angus instead of breeding more heifer because the beef price is so damn.
Yeah, do I breed a heifer and hold her for two and a half years? Then she hits the market.
Cash.
And she's $2,700, or I get $800 for a heifer a day, right? And stay the same size.
Yeah.
And so, and they've been. You look at cull rates, like the amount of animals. So it's called non-fed beef cattle. So the dairy cattle that go in the ground beef and stuff like that. That's where the dairy cattle in low end cuts. And if you look at the numbers of them, for like 65 consecutive weeks, they've been less of those animals month over month from prior year going in, right? So what that tells me is
That's
that
why McDonald's keeps raising our price.
yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably a lot of it. But they've been holding those animals back, and you can see the U.S. dairy herd getting a little older, right?
Oh, you mean days?
Like lactation, right? So maybe
I mean lactation numbers,
Yeah.
right? Instead of a 2-1 or something like
so
that. Yeah.
instead of 2.5 average lactation, I get 3.5 in these
Yep.
herds. But you can only do that so long before you start culling again.
Yes.
But that's been about 600,000 head less going to beef slaughter, right, on the dairy side that had been going there prior, right? And if you get back to normal, now you get a 5% reduction in the U.S. dairy herd.
That's good.
Which is huge, right? And so if that happens, U.S. dairy prices move up. So I'm kind of bullish on dairy. I'm bullish on beef. Beef's easy one to be bullish on.
Yeah.
Almonds look decent. Crazy prices, no. I mean, but I think it's gonna be profitable for most guys if they're controlling costs. If you get a contract on tomatoes, good. Silages, it's tough. You're $10 better than last year, but man, if you don't have low cost of production and your carry costs aren't
And water
right,
costs.
and water
it's hard to
costs are
grow
huge.
corn
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
You know.
And the huge one that we've played with is what a whole price is going to do.
Yeah.
So if almond hulls move up or down, that's a predominant determinant of what corn size values in the field, right? To a dairyman at least, and that's the predominant buyer. So that's where I'm always watching when we're making decisions on what we're going to plant. But other than that, everything else is just not looking great. So at least up in our markets, it's going to be a tough year.
Bloom season is just around the corner. Are you ready? Ensuring your crops have the right nutrition is critical for a successful yield. AgriValley Consulting provides expert PCA and CCA services to create custom crop nutrition plans tailored to your operation. Don't wait. Contact AgriValley Consulting today and set your crops up for success.
So the S&P 500 isn't a bad deal.
No, yeah, I know. I don't. Yeah, that's just as much of a gamble as anything
Yeah, I
else. It
know.
really is. At
So
least this stuff I can touch.
I think Sean, again, he's now covering for the Ag Center on all commodity reports, as well as now he's doing everything for CamJ twice a week, correct? I think you can hear it. What time? 5:30 in the morning and also in the afternoon.
it's too early for me.
Yeah, it's a little too early for me, but most people are up early. It's great to get that voice. And so now back to what the Ag Center is plan, what our move forward in the next year. Again, February, our goal is February 1st, right? To launch our app, which is number one, most important thing. What our goal and what we've always done is deliver to growers information. I think I don't believe anybody's delivering a commodity report on a scale basis that we plan on doing, as well as, like I said, weather tracking, everything like that. When you're able to wake up in the morning and have that, as well as your own in-house purchasing agent. And I'm getting to that, as well as the service companies that we have, to be able to start booking online, as well as discounts and things. And back to what I was talking about is why I believe, like I said, like the Elon way is I believe farmers we need to really start looking at our cost, our liabilities. And when you're putting a guy on the road, when something can get delivered to you in 24 to 48 hours, price transparency, you can have it, and it is at your shop. You can go back and look at your POs. Did I get this delivered? Was it actually here? I think that is going to be the future of where farming's going. And people can disagree with that, but I'm too into it every day to see how much I'm a product of what has happened to me.
Well, I tell people all the time too, if you want to continue farming at 10% higher than the guy next to you, we'll see how long you do that for. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the other part about it is just getting saving 10%. We talked about cost reductions this year on your farming side.
Yeah.
My dairyman's 3,000 cow dairy. If I save 10%, I'm $300,000-$400,000.
Absolutely.
It's a huge chunk of money back in my pocket. Tomato grow. It doesn't matter who you are. If I save 10% on costs on an almond operation, it could be $200-$300 an acre, right? That's all back to your bottom line. That's where that transparency piece hits. As long as you're relying on salespeople to tell you what the best price is, you're probably not getting the best price.
And back to, like you were talking about, a purchasing group.
Yeah.
Are we a co-op? No. But are we looking for that buy-in of growers? Because the more buy-in, the more we have growers bought into this, we will be able to reduce these prices. Yeah. And that being said, because I've seen it, like I said, 10,000 acre grower is not big.
Right.
the way they buy in the Midwest is 300,000 to 400,000 together.
Yeah, and they buy and they stay together.
They stay together, and we think, oh, we're getting a rebate on this. It's all bullshit, man. It's all bullshit. It's the big guys are controlling the Syngentas or whatever it is are controlling the way we're doing, because the terms that we can give if growers are bought in, the flexibility, we want to almost be, actually, I'll take it another step. The way we want the Ag Center wants to be is a lobbyist for growers, because I know, and we can open up what the true things are happening on the back end.
It's about transparency, right?
And because do you not want to pay for your fertilizer till after you harvest?
Right.
That's what they do in the Midwest.
Yeah.
They don't pay for seed. They don't pay for anything. But we're sitting here getting our asses kicked in and thinking, oh, if you pay now, we get 8% rebate at the end of the year. Big fucking deal.
Or can you go in and control 70% of the market by saying, hey, I have 70% of the growers. They're all gonna buy together. You guys give me your bids. First one to give me the best bid gets us in, right? That's huge. Versus right now they pick us off. And that's just I'm a big negative on the big I call it big pharma side, big seed company side. I think they've been taking advantage of the industry for a long time. I don't care who it is, semen companies, whatever. They go in, they pick people off. The big guys get a much better deal, but not always, than the next guy down from them. And from market to market, like I said, we saw a 40% difference between South and North market on the same chemicals, right? And there's no reason they don't work better up north than they do down south, where I have to pay for them more. But nobody can give you any transparency what that cost is, and so that's where I look at it, big time. Guys are always pushing back on that idea, saying, "Oh, well, the growers, and I don't have transparency on my numbers." I'm not asking you to share my numbers.
That guy's been from Nutrients, been taking care of us for 20 years. Big deal.
Yeah, in his new boat, in his new house, right? And that's fine. I want people to make money on all sides, but we're in the volatility that we have right now, and the way that we don't have a way of passing on costs to consumers. I got to get costs down to do what they asked me to do with these new prices that they're asking me to farm for. And the only way to do that's by collectively buying, collectively doing things. And I think folks have got to get that kind of mantle off where it's like, I want to be independent, I want to do my thing. It's okay to be independent, but sometimes you got to collectively do stuff so you get some power behind it. Yep. And one great example I'll show people is that when we were doing the pool quota thing with dairy, right? When everybody's individually kind of suing each other for this whole pool quota thing to go away. And when these guys finally got together, nobody wanted to get a lawyer together to do it, right? And they hated the lawyer, right? But when they finally
family was involved,
right? When they finally got the lawyer involved, and like I told some people all the time, he may be a rat-faced bastard, but he's your rat-faced bastard, right? Same thing with this chemical company. You may not like chemical companies. You may not like the idea of us putting one together and doing things from a collective basis, but we're yours.
Yep.
Right, and that's a huge thing.
They can't. So. The chemical company, fertilizer companies can't stop you when you're 300,000 acres.
Yeah, no.
And California, as you said, we're the highest input.
By far,
we're 3 times what an Iowa grower is.
What was tomato cost this year per acre?
$4,500
easy, right? $4,500. 4 years ago, $3,500.
Yep.
Right. Almond.
10 years ago, $2,500.
Yeah, almond, same thing, same rise, 20% up the past 3 or 4 years. It's easy to see almond orchards in the $3,500.
And I see a lot of new trucks with fertilizer company stickers driving around.
Yeah, right.
And we're in the shop fixing our trucks.
Yeah. And I love seeing the numbers come in. Like I said, when I see the transparency side of it, when I can see, it's blind. I see company A, B, C, D, and E together, and they're saying, "Here's what I'm getting charged for my chem and my fertilizer costs," and I can line them up next to each other. It's the variability, and it's crazy. Yep. And I love that because then it's easy to go back and say, "Hey, man,
one company's good at this, one company, but when you're buying from one or whatever, there's always the kickback, the game that like my dad always said when we were at the dairy. You don't need to take me to Y, buy me tickets to the NFR. I just want the best price. Yeah. I don't need your sales rep to take me to lunch. And what we want is that back.
Right.
Because we'd rather not hang out with you anyways. We'd rather just get a better price.
I got shit to do.
Yeah, or I'd rather take my wife or family to dinner. You know what I mean?
And don't sell me magic foo-foo dust without in the back end proving me that I did something else, right? That's the other thing. Yeah.
That's one of our main goals, and we want to be transparent with that. We want to push that forward. I think we're going to be able to, help growers on that side. And like I said, it's keeping Juan or Joe off the road, wasting time, money, dollars, gas. That's only going up. Liability's going up. Insurance. Let somebody else take it on. Just like Amazon has taken our wives off the road, right? They've made it easier. You know, there's a package there every day. Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah, can you do something about the boxes?
Yeah,
That'd help me,
but
you know, whatever.
but it is you can't beat their delivery. You can't beat their time, and I think that's it, like I said, it's going to happen in agriculture. It's whether we want it.
Especially in California, when you got so much money to spend per acre.
Yeah,
really. I mean, back east might be a little taller deal because you've got so much distance between places, but out here we're so tight as far as geography goes. There's so much money per acre. It's easy to make sense of doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
What else are you seeing coming up for 25?
Man, those are my big things. I think the other thing is dealing with your banks is going to be a bigger issue. I think there's more and more risk with these guys, especially with rates kind of going back up again. I think really understanding what where your costs are at. I think you are not long for this world if you can't deliver kind of a world-class budgeting system that tells your bank where you're at and where your costs are at almost all times. It's just,
The napkin doesn't work no more.
napkin don't work anymore, or
Unless you got a big bank account.
yeah, right. And if you do, why would you waste it?
Yeah.
Not knowing. So that's a huge piece. I think you see, like always, continued consolidation in the market. But my big wonder right now is what's going to happen with institutional money. So is it going to kind of? I see it hovering, and it's just waiting for these kind of properties to fall off and jump in. Is it going to jump back in again and maybe prop the market back up again? Are they going to pull back out? You know, we know a couple of large institutional REITs that have had properties just handed back to them, right? By their,
It's been interesting, yeah.
their lessors, and so like that's the big trend I think this year. It's what's going to happen with all that property, whose hands is it going to change over to, and I think the other thing is just understanding crop mix. So I really think that you can have larger and larger management companies versus farming companies. That trend's going to continue this year, and I think you're going to see on the dairy side. I think you may see a pretty good size exit for anybody under 1,500 head, just getting out of the market. Just cows
Doesn't make sense.
You got $3,200 heifers and $2,800 cows. You never would have gotten that market for those cattle ever again. So do you sit on that, right?
No, it's good. It's a good exit.
Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing right now, and I think the other thing is a generational transfer. So it's really hit a fever point in this past 2 years. So just folks that are in their 60s and 70s looking to do, what are they going to do with that property next? And talked to Nino and Riley about that before. Like, how does that transition happen? How do you facilitate it? Who steps into that market and maybe takes those properties over management? And again, that's another management thing, right? You got a generational farmer who has a generation coming up that doesn't want to own the property, but maybe don't want to sell it either and pay the taxes, so you come in and manage it for them.
Yep.
So I think that management aspect's going to be becoming more and more what California ag looks like, which is what Brazil's become, right? I look at Brazil over time, and they've kind of done the same thing, right? Huge management companies, institutional and or large family owners of property, and the guys making all the money.
Looking for a small return.
Yeah, looking for a small return to hold the value of the property, and then the guys making all the money, the guys managing the crops for them. So, but, yeah.
Well, Sean, I think you've hit it on point as you do weekly. Again, usually when we do the toast, it's not all about the Ag Center. Today I haven't done a podcast, I think, in 4 or 5 years. So today was fun to be back. Yeah. I'm excited to be back. I kind of got to do it. I've had a bunch of different people do it, but it's kind of like Dana, my buddy of mine said, like Dana White, he does everything for the UFC. And if I'm going to do this, I probably better be here because I don't plan on going anywhere, right? So
right.
I probably better sit in the chair if I'm going to do it. I prefer not to at times, but I enjoy hearing the feedback of people. I've been to people who listen. I appreciate everybody that's tunes in to it. We want anybody can reach out to the Ag Center. We have a great team that will get back to you, things you want to hear. You want to be on the podcast, talk.
Share information.
That's our goal. And we've had a lot of fun with it over the last 6-7 years. And I think our mission is we finally, after messing around long enough, kind of have a really goal in the last year or two and where we want to go. So again, I want to thank you, Sean. Toast to you, man.
Salud.
And toast to all farmers. 25, we hope nothing but the best for you and your family. And God bless.
And I'm raving.